Chapter 12. Things here are not what they seem. Sir Didymus and Toby pressed forward through the maze. They came upon a fork in the path that had arched doorways. To the left, written above the doorway in red paint, were the words, "This way leads to death," as if someone were trying to warn those who travel to avoid the danger. To the right, there was no writing above the door. "This way must be safe," Toby said, and turned to the right. "This way, my boy," Sir Didymus said as he walked toward the threatening message. "In the labyrinth things are not what they seem, and if ye are on the right path or heading toward good things, there shall be diversions and scare tactics to steer thee away." Toby was surprised to learn this important truth. It would save him a lot of time and frustration. "Okay," Toby agreed. He felt calm and secure in trusting in Sir Didymus. Sir Didymus breathed in deep. "Ah, what a welcome scent! Fresh baked pies!" Toby sniffed the air. He couldn't smell any pie. Wait, there was something in the air. It was getting stronger. "Yuck!" Toby said as he got a big whiff of something musty and moldy. "That's not pie," Toby said. He began to wonder about Sir Didymus's sense of smell. "What I would give for a pie right now," Toby said, his mouth too dry to salivate over even that thought. Sir Didymus pulled from his saddlebag some food and drink. He shared with Toby, and it was the jump start Toby needed. "I have missed Sarah. How has she been these past years?" Sir Didymus asked. "Good," Toby replied. "She went off to college, but would come home to visit for special occasions like my birthday and Christmas. She got a job, too." "My lady has grown up," said Sir Didymus softly. "Sarah was so brave. She was young, but she was brave." "As young as me?" Toby asked curiously. "No," replied Sir Didymus. "Not as young as thou art." He paused, remembering, then continued. "Thou were but a babe at that time, the very babe, in fact. The reason Sarah came here and steered me away from my unnecessary duty. She changed my life." "How did Sarah find the labyrinth, and why was she here?" Toby asked. "She challenged the Goblin King to get thee back. Didst thou not know of this?" Sir Didymus asked. "I don't remember," Toby said. "I did not know about this place." "The Goblin King wanted thee as a goblin in his court, a new goblin to add to his kingdom. Sarah realized she wanted thee after all, and in the end her bravery won against the king himself." Toby was in awe at the thought of all the bravery Sarah had shown. She had gotten him back home because of that bravery. How would Toby possibly be able to get Sarah back home on his own? Chapter 13. A Small Cemetery. The travelers discovered a small cemetery within the labyrinth paths. Sir Didymus removed his hat and held it at his chest. "A moment of silence for those who have passed on," he said. "Oh," Toby said, and bowed his head in silence. When he raised his head again, he noticed upon one of the gravestones a strange-looking hat. It was shaped like a bird's head. Then suddenly the eyes of the bird opened. "Hello," the hat said. "Hi, what are you doing here in the cemetery?" Toby asked. "My master left this world, and I was left to watch over his grave," the hat replied. "Wouldst thou wish us to remove thee from this place?" Sir Didymus offered. Well, well, well. "Well, well, well, where would I go?" the hat asked with much attitude. "Perhaps on a vacation, or to live in a zoo." "Okay, stay here then," Toby said, a little annoyed at the attitude of the strange hat. Sir Didymus and Toby moved on from the cemetery. Little did they know, as they walked away, a phoenix flew above the cemetery and spotted the hat. It flew down and cried out a sound of joyful surprise. "My brother, is it really you?" the hat asked. "We had lost hope of ever seeing you again," replied the phoenix. "The family will celebrate when we arrive home together." "I may not be the bird I once was," the hat sadly admitted, looking at the change that had happened with his body years ago. "No matter," replied the phoenix. "We love you, and we will shout with joy about your return." The bird gently grasped the hat with its talons and lifted him off the gravestone. As they flew into the sky, the hat thought how it had been many years since he had felt flight. He embraced every moment of the once familiar experience, with more joy in him than he had felt since the last day he had been with his flock. Inara Vile entered the cemetery as the birds flew off into the sky. She searched the gravestones for a moment and stopped at one in particular. Kneeling down, she placed a flower against the tombstone of her mother, whose image was displayed in the center. Inara looked at her mother's face and recalled what she looked like in person, with her beautiful style and her royal court. Once upon a time, when the court was not made up of goblins, but of human beings, a court that doted upon their queen and followed her obsession with fashion. The men styled their facial hair long, but each with a unique creative fashion. Mustaches that formed swirls or even tusks. Beards that formed intricate designs below their chins. Handsome hats and clothing to match their facial efforts. The women wore their hair full and large above their heads as if they were hats themselves. Each social gathering was a picture-perfect affair. "Hi, Mom," Inara said. "Remember the time we had a tea party in the tower? I must have been 6 years old." Inara imagined her childhood playhouse tower in their backyard, amidst a hedge labyrinth. Inara spent much of her childhood in that tower. Only once had her mother ever gone inside to play with her. Then Inara remembered what happened next. Jareth ruined it when he practiced his magic on our tea. He turned the tea into goose worms. I was so angry I threatened to throw him into the bog of eternal stench. Inara leaned into the tombstone, resting her forehead against the top of it, this being the closest thing she had to hugging her mother now. Mother was not much of an affectionate parent when she was alive. However, on occasion there was a hug or words of endearment, and those are the memories Inara cherished most. Chapter 14, A Wedding Proposal. Sarah woke that day with a desire to get out of the castle. She dressed for the day and went to meet Jareth for breakfast, where she was surprised to find a note at her spot of the table. A fancy card read, "Meet me in the ballroom. Love, Jareth." Sarah went straight there after realizing the chef had brought no food out for breakfast that morning. In the ballroom, Jareth stood precisely in the center. There was music coming from a gramophone in the corner, playing a melody sweet, strong, and beautiful. As Sarah approached Jareth, he knelt down upon one knee and pulled something from his pocket. He reached up and held Sarah's hand. "Love of my life, will you rule by my side forevermore? Be my bride?" He paused, but there was no waver in his confidence at that moment. "Sarah, will you marry me?" The truth came from Sarah's lips. Maybe? She was in no position to be 100% sure of a yes or a no. Jareth paused an uncertain moment and then replied, "Wonderful," wherein he pulled her close for a kiss. She and Jareth ventured into the Goblin City for a stroll and some breakfast. As Sarah walked, she noticed how bland the colors were around the square and the neighborhoods. "I have a fun idea," Sarah said aloud. "Let's dress up the city with color. Can we find some fabric?" Jareth considered this a moment, then smiled and said, "Of course, my dear. Let's announce our engagement and invite the city to celebrate with us." He called upon the nearest goblins. "Find colorful cloths and bring them to your princess now." Immediately, the goblins scurried off in different directions. Jareth climbed upon a table and proclaimed, "Goblin City, meet your future queen." He gestured for attention to hit Sarah by outreaching his hand toward her. Sarah smiled uneasily and said softly as she looked at the crowd, "Maybe." Later that day, a crowd of goblins met with their king and princess in the square, cutting fabrics into flags and banners. Sarah handed them out and said, "Please hang these around the city from windows and on gates. We'll make this place more cheerful." Sarah wanted to make a difference and bring color and joy to the Goblin City citizens. Jareth, however, wanted to spread the news of the upcoming wedding, which Sarah had not technically agreed to. Chapter 15, Nearing the Goblin City. Walking through the maze, walls on either side of them, the two pressed forward. "We are making good progress in the labyrinth," Sir Didymus announced. "We shall be to the Goblin City tomorrow late morning." "Thank goodness," Toby exclaimed. "I wish it was now." Suddenly, Sir Didymus stopped Toby and hushed him. The two of them could hear echoes of multiple hoofs upon the stone ground. Sir Didymus knew who it was, Jareth's guards riding their Drachno creatures, looking for trouble to stir up. Ambrosius was nervous and let out a bark to express those nerves. Sir Didymus shut his eyes and sighed a frustrated sigh. Toby and Sir Didymus turned around to see behind them 4 guards, goblins and monsters alike, atop saddled Drachnos. Upon the bodies of the guards were armor, and in their hands they held weapons. 2 of the guards carried jousting sticks. The other 2 had swords, all of which were aimed at Toby and Sir Didymus. Toby was scared. Will they hurt us? Will they take us prisoner? Toby's thoughts went in circles. The guards stared intently at Toby, noticing that he was different. "You look like the king's kind," one guard said. "You shouldn't be here," another said. "Do you surrender?" the first guard asked. "Not quite," Sir Didymus replied. "A duel! We challenge thee for a fight." The guards laughed with amusement. "Sure thing, Pipsqueak." Before Toby knew it, he had volunteered to fight one of the guards himself due to a moment of surprising bravery. Guards lent a short-necked Drachno to the boy for the duel. They laughed as they handed the reins over. As Toby sat upon his Drachno, holding a jousting stick, the creature began to hiccup. His hiccups increased, and as it did, Toby's bravery evaporated. "She gets hiccups when she tenses up," a guard revealed, followed by a burst of laughter from the troop. "I can't do it," Toby said to Sir Didymus, who had hoped Toby was up for it, but at the same time hoped Toby wouldn't go through with it. "Get down quickly, I shall take thy place," said Sir Didymus. They changed places, and Sir Didymus faced a guard, both ready to joust. Another guard blew a horn, and the 2 opponents raced toward each other, sticks drawing nearer and nearer each other with every passing moment. Sir Didymus knocked the guard, hit him so hard he fell from his Drachno. Toby cheered with glee. "I have bested thee fair and square," Sir Didymus said to the guard. "Now we shall take our leave." Honestly, Sir Didymus knew that wasn't going to be so easy. With angry expressions, the guards slowly moved towards Toby, Sir Didymus, and Ambrosius. "Run!" Sir Didymus yelled. All 3 ran together as fast as they could. Chapter 16, Living Life in the Castle. The problem with not having pain or negativity in one's life is that the highs of life are not as high. After a painful experience, one appreciates the absence of pain more than they had before. After a sick day, one feels even happier about feeling healthy than they had before. Pain increases the joy one feels in life. Remove all memories of pain and hardships, and you remove their ability to fully appreciate anything, their ability to truly be happy. Sarah lived at the castle and tried to be happy. However, all she could do was go through the motions. Something felt a little off, but she attempted to ignore that feeling. Now and then, when it was Jareth and Sarah alone, for example, dancing in the ballroom, she thought the feelings were real and maybe actually love. Sarah woke that morning in her own little room. A bed was made out of the finest cushions in the land, which isn't saying much, but compared to most of the furniture in the castle, it was fine indeed. The bedroom contained a bed, wardrobe, and vanity desk. The beauty desk had a mirror for her to sit at and make her feel more at home. Only she did not feel at home. She had none of her beloved personal belongings. When she looked at her mirror, all she saw was herself. No photos or memorabilia flyers attached. No toys or books from her childhood nearby or in the reflection of the mirror. Nothing to spark memories filled with joy or comfort. Sarah wandered from her bedroom after dressing up for the day in a simple outfit, namely pants. That's what she felt like wearing. Sometimes she wanted to feel feminine and special, and she would wear a dress. Sometimes she was in the mood to be constructive and ready for anything, so she would wear pants. Both styles made her feel beautiful and confident when she was feeling that vibe. Sarah wandered to the dining hall where Jareth was not used to dining. He would typically eat in the throne room, his bedchambers, or anywhere he pleased, ordering goblins to serve his food wherever he was when he wanted his meal. With Sarah in the castle, he was spending more of his meals at the table. Sarah had not known these facts about her love. She would have thought it less civilized, and Jareth knew this about her as well. So he dined with Sarah in the dining hall, proving himself to be royalty through and through, while his court ate and acted like goblins, which they, in fact, were. Breakfast was brought in on a cart by a goblin wearing a chef hat. The Goblin King and his princess ate their meal. Sarah tried to come up with topics to converse about. "What do you like to do on a day like today?" Jareth smiled and responded, "I enjoy practicing my magic and visiting my most despised citizens." "Oh, do you go cheer them up?" Sarah inquired. "No," Jareth laughed. "I like to personally go collect taxes from them." Sarah's smile faded fast. "I have many duties as king, you must understand," Jareth continued the conversation. Suddenly a party of goblins entered the dining hall and approached the table, two of which were working together to carry a white bridal gown so as to not let it drag on the floor. "What a lovely dress," Sarah admired. "Meet the wedding crew," Jareth announced. Sarah's eyes widened and her smile faded just a little. "Calendar," Jareth called. A goblin held up a dirty calendar for Jareth to view. "Yes, 2 days from now will be perfect," Jareth said. "Our wedding day." He smiled at Sarah. "I think that's enough planning for now," Sarah suggested and sighed with relief as the party exited, as clumsily as they had entered. Chapter 17, A Mischievous New Friend. They stopped to rest in a small courtyard. "I'm tired," Toby admitted. Ambrosius laid down and quickly fell asleep. They had run long enough that they felt confident their hunters had lost track of them. The night had fallen and the party members were exhausted. Toby and Sir Didymus sat down under a stone gazebo. "We shall sleep here tonight," Sir Didymus decided. Toby lay down, and the last thing he saw before he drifted into a deep, quick sleep was a leafy carving in the legs of the structure. The scene was very dark, and he was too tired to notice the roof of the gazebo was made of wrought iron. Dark, curvy designs adorned the top of the structure, creating a beautiful roof, though not useful. Were it to rain, any dwellers in the gazebo would get thoroughly wet. It wasn't the sunshine that woke Toby the next morning, but rather raindrops. Toby opened his eyes and saw the gazebo roof. Where was the rain, though? Toby saw no rainfall. Then he felt it again. Toby looked around and saw a small fountain. From behind the fountain, a little goblin child popped up and flung a handful of water at Toby. "Who are you?" it said boldly. Sir Didymus quickly pulled his sword and aimed it at the goblin. Toby jumped back at the startle. The goblin didn't flinch. He seemed unafraid of the sword. Sir Didymus decided that this child was not a threat, so he put his sword away. "I'm Toby," the boy said. "Are you a goblin?" "Of course," the young goblin replied. "I've never met a goblin before. I guess the Goblin King is actually king over goblins?" Toby asked. He realized that he had not thought about what the goblin city really looked like or who lived there. He had certainly not imagined a city filled with goblins that looked like this creature in front of him. "There's a whole goblin city full of us at the center of the labyrinth. I'm Buttle," the little thing said. "Want to see what I stole yesterday?" He ran over to the wall and grabbed a board on wheels with a pole and a sheet sail atop it. Toby thought it looked like a skateboard and sailboat combined, created out of various trash. The goblin hopped on and kick-started the board. A fan attached to the pole turned on, and the little invention was sailing smoothly. "That's amazing!" Toby exclaimed. It certainly looked like fun. "Try it out," Buttle suggested. Toby was very excited. Buttle taught Toby how to use it, and they laughed. Toby had made a friend. Sir Didymus filled his water container and watched with a smile as the boys played, but he felt the clock ticking. He wondered what Jareth had in store for Sarah and where she was at this very moment. Toby is very young, Sir Didymus thought to himself. He would not find success in rescuing Sarah on his own. Sir Didymus would need to enlist some help, and fast. Toby steered the windsurfer out of the little courtyard they had spent the night in. Sir Didymus called out for Toby to come back. He did not want to get separated. At that very moment, Buttle found something to entertain himself. He struck a match to tease Ambrosius with. Ambrosius backed up, but the goblin ran toward him. The poor dog took off down a path on the opposite side of the courtyard. Sir Didymus ran after Ambrosius. Buttle fell to the ground laughing. Toby zoomed down the path and then turned around to go back. He made a U-turn and took another path, but that was a dead end. He tried retracing his steps. He could not find his way back. And Sir Didymus, he was off catching Ambrosius, making it nearly impossible for the team to find their way back to each other at that time. "Sir Didymus!" Toby called out, but there was no reply. Toby sat down and began to cry. "When you get lost, it is best to stay put until someone finds you," Toby said to himself. He remained in that spot to wait and occasionally yelled, "Sir Didymus!" After 20 minutes of staying put, Toby had decided that the rule doesn't apply in a labyrinth. Moving on was the only option.